Let me ask you a question. Are you tired of working odd jobs or building a business that seems to never get off the ground fully? Well, that's why we're going to jump in today. So let's go ahead and jump into the 7 major fundamentals of what it takes to build a 9-figure empire from scratch. Just for some added perspective, I want to go ahead and share a quick story with you. You see, I recently was at an event with Andy Elliott, and I went to go congratulate him and shake his hand on building his first 9-figure empire. I thought it was worth celebrating. I was super excited about it because I know exactly how difficult that should be or was. But when I went to go shake his hand and congratulate him, he actually said, it actually wasn't that hard. And it had me thinking, did I do it wrong? Did I not follow the right fundamentals? How is Andy Elliott able to go and build a 9-figure empire far quicker than I did? Well, that's why I wanted to address these 7 major fundamentals, because these 7 major fundamentals are the anchor points of what it takes to build an organization that can be massive. Because I understand if I help you build an organization that can be massive, I can also help you build a community impact that can be massive. You see, business is not just about what you get. Business is far more about service, and those that serve well get paid well. All right, fundamental number 1, mindset first, strategy second. When you set out to go and build a massive organization, you're going to do a lot of developmental changes along the way. The books you read, the podcasts you listen to, the people you follow, the content you consume, all of those things are major impactors into developing a healthy mindset. Not to mention actually shaping your mind as you go. You see, as an entrepreneur, a few things are going to happen. A lot of times, especially when you're in the early days, when you're getting your business off the ground, you're going to go through a lot of fear, a lot of insecurity, a lot of impatience, a lot of arrogance, a lot of ignorance in some cases. You simply don't know what you don't know, which then increases the fear, which increases the insecurity, and then increases the limiting belief, wondering if you can actually do it too. I'm here to tell you you can do it, but you've got to be very intentional about how you shape your mindset on a daily basis. So let's talk about the mindset for a second. You see, I believe the mindset specifically comes down to really 3 factors. What you want, what you fear, and more importantly, what you need to know, okay? So let's break that down for a second. A lot of times when they get into psychosomatic work, we start talking a lot about how to make the nervous system calm down in such a way that you can actually have free flow. The nervous system itself is what controls many of the subconscious actions that play into your conscious behaviors that come from your mind. So what does that mean? Because it's a lot of mumbo jumbo, or at least it sounds like that. The easiest way to explain this is what you tell your mind continually becomes what your mind believes routinely. So if you think you're not going to be able to make payroll, you will actually find ways to not make payroll. If you think you can build a large organization, you can create massive amounts of revenue, and you can develop team members and teams and leadership teams, all this kind of stuff, then guess what? You will find a way to do it, because what you focus on, you flow on. So when we start looking at the mind, we want to look at the different types of those types of things, right? So let's talk about fear. I would actually go as far as to say, hey, what do you fear? List your top 4 or 5 fears. What's in your way? I'm scared I won't make payroll. I'm scared no one will like my product. I'm scared that I can't do this. I'm scared that I don't have enough experience or enough wisdom or enough chutzpah, if you will, to get it done. Go ahead and get it out. Go ahead and put it on paper. And then I want you to go through a process of reframing that same methodology and that same content. In other words, I want you to take the time and say, I'm fearful I can't make revenue. Great. I want you to reframe it and say, I'm going to create revenue in multiple different streams. Start to reframe the things and start to recite those things continually, day after day, in your own mindset. And as a result, what's going to happen is you are going to develop a very healthy, very robust, very structured mindset, right? Then it comes down to, what do I need to know? I have a GED. That's the extent of my business professional career. Everything else I learned, quote unquote, on the job. By the books that I read, the people I associated with, the problems that I had to face, the challenges I saw in myself that I had to overcome. All of these types of things are areas that identify what you need to know. So if you've never read a P&L sheet, you should get a financial book that teaches you how to read P&Ls and what a P&L is. If you don't know what a balance sheet is, then great, go find a resource that teaches you what a balance sheet is. If you don't know how to create revenue, when I say revenue, you don't even know what that means, then great, get a business book that talks about creating revenue. See, when you identify the things that are in your way, you can easily identify the things that you need to know to get those same things out of your way. And that's what I mean by developing a healthy mindset. You see, 7-figure earners basically go after call it the golden cookie, right? They want to make sure everything looks good. They want to make sure they get money coming in, but they're not thinking about what an 8 and a 9-figure entrepreneur do, which is compounding. How do they take that? See, that's a mindset shift. So how do you shift your mindset from one extreme to the next? By content. Videos like this, books, podcasts, thought leaders, You name it, you can find a way to actually address the things that you need to know. All right, fundamental principle number 2 is this: start small, scale as fast as cash. Recently, I did a post on Instagram where someone from the Instagram audience had reached out to me about getting funding for their business. Now, many of you guys know that my primary methodology behind funding for your business means you move at the speed of the cash that you generate. I am not a fan, historically, of taking investments from other people. I'm not saying you should never do it. I'm not saying that sometimes it won't work and all this kind of stuff. What I'm saying is you're increasing the likelihood of the risk. So when you start small and you scale as fast as cash, inevitably what happens is you're forced to slow things down based on the actual growth curve of the business. It actually will help you identify the roadblocks that are in your way from scaling a company very quickly. Which is why when you start small, whatever the organization is, if you're a 1-person show, if you're a 3-person show, a 10-person show, or whatever, if you understand the methodologies of building a business, the ideation, the sales, the fulfillment, the finance, the raving fan retention models, if you understand the core concepts, then what you can do is you can be present in the moment. You see, one of the things that I've never seen entrepreneurs say enough of, right, is that all of them think, including myself a lot of times, that we should be further along than we actually are. Literally 100% of the entrepreneurs would say that. If I asked you to right now and say, hey, in your business, do you think you should be further along than you are right now? Let's be honest. You just said yes, didn't you? Of course you did. That's what entrepreneurs do. Entrepreneurs are visionary. We like to go after the golden cookie, if you will, right? Here's the thing. The best thing you can possibly do is to grow your business at the rate in which the growth is actually happening. Sometimes taking money from other people, investments, and not using cash that you have to reinvest in your business does a few things. First of all, it increases risk drastically. Because if something doesn't work, guess who they're coming after to get paid? You guessed it, because you're gonna have to sign a personal guarantee in many of those respects, right? The second thing is you're gonna pay way too much money for the money, right? So if you take a $100,000 investment, an angel investor is gonna want 8 to 12 times that money in return before you get them out of your business. And guess what? A lot of times the paperwork has it where they get paid first. So think about that. Not only did you increase your risk, you also increase the amount of money that you're gonna have to pay in to make this happen. And the third and final thing when you take money from other people is what they refer to as the borrower is always slave to the lender. Now you have somebody else to report to on your actions and activities when you're trying to make the best decisions you possibly can for your business. And depending on what equity stake you give up or how much of your business you give up to get this money will determine how much say-so you actually have in the business that you're doing all the work in to create in the first place. So what I'm gonna tell you to do, I'm gonna tell you to go ahead and build your business lean. Don't take on added expenses. Don't take on added investment. Don't take on added things that are gonna cost you money long-term. 9-figure earners think long-term. They think long game. They're not thinking what's gonna happen this very second. They're thinking, what am I building in the next year, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years? We are thinking about things differently. We're thinking about it from a perspective of compounding. So when you start looking at your business and you're actually building it from that small scale, we want to scale it as fast as cash. Because when you do that, you eliminate risk, you open up opportunity, and you get to see your business at a whole other level. All right, number 3. This is super important, especially if you're in a committed relationship or married. And that is get household buy-in. One of the things that I discovered by accident was that you actually can get further faster if the family knows what to expect out of the grind phase. You see, when you go to build a business, a lot of times you as an entrepreneur are gonna feel isolated and alone, set apart. You're not gonna have a community to tap into, which is the primary reason we created the Unstoppable Entrepreneur Program, to help entrepreneurs like yourself tap into a network of getting this actual community-based help. But more important, let's go back to the original concept here. When you get buy-in from your family, you're gonna have less stress in your home, which means you're gonna have less stress to take into the business the next day. So how do you do that? Well, the first thing that I would do is I would sit down with my family, anyone who's of age, my spouse, my partner, the person I'm dating, if you're in a serious committed relationship, if you have kids and they're old enough, maybe 13 or 14, I wanna sit them down and say, hey, look, here's the plan. I'm going to plan on building this type of business in this type of time frame. I think I'm gonna have to basically set aside this amount of time that I may not be as available as you guys are used to having me available. But I promise this, I will carve out X number of hours a week that is absolutely committed to you. I will shut my computer off, I will shut my phone off, I will step outside of the organization to make sure that I am serving you in the capacity of the family first. What's going to happen when you do that is you're setting a healthy precedent with the family. The family now appreciates the grind and the climb that you're about to embark on. More importantly, not only when they do that, they now have buy-in themselves. They now feel like they're part of the vision because you're telling them, hey, I need your support. In my case, dad, husband, father, boyfriend, whatever the terminology is, right? In order for me to do my part, I need the family support. I'm asking them for their support in advance in exchange for very committed quality time. In fact, where I literally shut all the devices off and I'm spending time with them in a way that is meaningful to them. I'm locking eyes with them. We're having deep conversations. We're reading books together. We're doing all kinds of things. The core principle here is to make sure that you have family buy-in, right? You want your partner or your spouse to support you in this endeavor. And I promise you, if you don't take the time to do this proactively, poo is going to hit the fan. Because your family can't go but so long without attention before they feel like they've been alienated. And once they feel like they've been alienated and they feel like they're not part of the vision, they're not part of the thing, then what happens is they end up giving up on you even though you're trying to provide for them. That is a huge problem I see all the time in entrepreneurship. It's a huge problem I personally faced building many of the companies that I've built, is making sure that I have this committed space and time for my family. Now, if you're single and you don't have a family, great. If you got a boyfriend or girlfriend or something like that, and you're kind of early stages, I would still have the conversation. I'd still have the conversation. And the reason I'd still have the conversation is because you're setting the precedent. You know, one of the things I've heard Patrick Bet-David say about the woman that he married, Jennifer, who's amazing, by the way, is this concept of making sure that you count the cost. You see, when he went to go marry Jennifer, they had a very upfront and very precise conversation about what the next 20 years looked like. Patrick's a visionary, as you might have guessed. And as he's going through this content and he's like sharing this concept with Jennifer, he gave her the opportunity then and there to opt out. She opted in. And as a result, they have built several 9-figure companies. Think about that. What if Patrick was at odds with Jennifer on a regular basis? What if you're at odds with your partner, your spouse, on a regular basis? How difficult is it going to be to build a sizable, profitable, scalable organization? It's an uphill battle. I've built multiple companies. After 2 failed relationships specifically, I have personally experienced what it's like to build a business in spite of your family or in spite of your spouse or partner, rather than to actually have them buy into what you're building. Here's what you're going to need to make sure you build well. You're going to be able to have a vision that you can cast that is clear and concise. You're going to need to have a direction, a stair step, a top 4 or 5 principles that you're going to use to build this business, major milestones that you can share with your family. Hey guys, this is the time commitment. This is the financial commitment. This is the quality time with you commitment. This is how I'm going to do this, and this is why I'm going to do this. It needs to be an intentional sit-down conversation with your family or with your boyfriend or girlfriend or whoever else you're with. And again, if you're single, no worries. Go grind it out and go build it anyway. But as soon as you have someone else step into your life that you think is going to add value and be there long term, you need to have the conversation like ASAP. Because again, you can either build a business with support or you can build a business alone. And I promise you, building a business with support is far better than building a business alone. Take my word for it. All right, number 4. This is a huge one. Spend more time planning in the beginning than you do testing. Most times what happens as entrepreneurs is we have an idea, we have a concept, we may have a product, a good or a service, and we think we should go to market with it immediately, right? Maybe you've got some kind of piece of content that you want to showcase to the world. Well, you can have all the bells and whistles. It can look beautiful on the outside looking in, but if you haven't thought about your monetization path, you're going to be in big trouble. You're going to spend far more money than you are making, and you're going to put yourself in a hole. So you need to sit down and actually come up with a very basic, bare bones business plan. I am not someone who believes that you need a massive business plans with thousands of words and all kinds of like industry data research. I'm not saying that stuff's not important in some cases. It depends on your industry and your niche. But what I am saying is you need to have an understanding of who the business is going to be when they grow up. You need to think about that ahead of time. Be very clear on your vision, very clear on your mission, very clear on the core values that you're going to use to operate your business. Let's give me the boundaries of what you stand for, the boundaries of what you stand against. You need to start thinking about the type of people that you're going to need to circle yourself around with, from leadership level to team members you may have not even hired for 3 or 4 years. You need to think about the roles they must play, the responsibilities they may have, and the ways in which you're going to measure them against their responsibilities. The ways you're going to measure yourself against your own responsibilities to make sure you're getting up out of bed, putting your feet on the floor, and getting it after day after day. At the end of all of this, you've got to understand that you need a basic plan. Right? That ideation phase, that planning phase, that thought, that really thinking through what this thing could look like if I execute it well. Along with what types of risk am I going to face right now as I go to execute on this. You see, you can't build a business based on all opportunity. You've got to count the cost before the cost count you. That's actually how you build a business. Right? When you move through the ideation phase, we'll pop into sales. What are we selling? How are we selling it? Who are we selling it to? Why are we selling it? You're going to look at your competitive research, like who's in the market with you? Who's doing what you're doing? What are they doing better? What are they not doing better? Right? What is your competitive value proposition? That's an important piece. Fulfillment. How are you going to deliver with excellence? How is that customer going to feel like they are your number one customer every single time you have a touch point with them? How can you increase the amount of touch points that you're going to have with them? Right? That's fulfillment. Finance. How are you going to measure financial success? Are you going to just base it on top line revenue, which is not always a great idea, or bottom line profit? Or are you going to use revenue goals to drive profitability goals? These types of things have to be at least thought through and planned to the best of your ability before you really take the first step. And if you've already been a building business for 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 years already, and you're like working through things, then now's the time to stop what you're doing, grab a notepad and a pen or an iPad or iPhone, whatever your note-taking device is, and go ask yourself many of the questions that I've already kind of brought to the surface. Go be away for 60 minutes, 90 minutes, 2 hours, 3 days, whatever. Like, take time. Take time. It will save you millions of dollars of problems along the way if you learn to plan and think well, which gives us the actual ability to start thinking strategically. You see, you have to have a strategy before you understand the tactics. If you just do tactics and you have no strategy, you're just throwing poo against the wall. Let's be honest. So why not create a bit of a roadmap for yourself and then begin to build out the strategy to actually make the tactical happen, right? Then you get in the raving fan retention. How are you going to reward these people to keep them coming back for more? All of these types of things are a form of planning and thinking through things. Now, if I'm in your shoes, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do all this work myself, on my own, by myself, in a quiet place. Maybe I do it over the course of a weekend. Maybe I rent an Airbnb somewhere and get away for a little bit. But I'm going to think through these different segments in a very big way. Okay? Think about that. The next thing I'm going to do with that piece of content is I'm going to find some key mentors to run my ideas and my plan against. You know, as we're going to launch our new clothing apparel line, our athletic wear, right? I have to go and create the concept and the idea, the monetization path, and then figure out the manufacturing channels, figure out the marketing channels. I'm going to take all of that before you ever see a piece of clothing out of our firm. I will have already done a lot of this legwork myself. I will have already taken all of that information and take it to my mentors that basically operate in that specific niche. Why? To prevent or decrease the amount of risk and or failure rate. Now, as you like to know, what we on the channel here, one of the things we talk about specifically is failure is always learning. It's always an indicator. There's nothing to feel bad about. I think I've shared with you guys publicly that of the businesses that I've built, only 7 of them actually maintained a level of success. I had 6 others that honestly were trash, but I was learning. This content came from the learning lessons along the way. Well, these mentors can help you overstep that or shortcut that, right? Because there's really 2 ways to learn. You can either learn by your own mistakes, which in many times is pretty painful, or 2, you can learn by the mistakes that other people have already made and gain the wisdom that they've already gotten, right? You can shortcut the process and the learning curve and the length of time it's going to take you to build a major successful organization. All of that, everything I just said, is a form of strategical planning. It's planning and thinking through the business before you actually go to build the business. And there's not going to be a perfect thing. For those of you out there who like to analyze by paralysis and go through all that stuff, don't do that. Literally just carve out a specific amount of time, Go through the different sections I just told you about, the ideation, the sales, the fulfillment, the finance, raving fan retention. Just go through those, think through them, and then put it on paper. Take it to your mentor, and they will coach you on the rest. Okay, next up, number 5, leverage systems and processes alongside of your hustle. What does that mean? Very simply, that if you're gonna build a business that you can scale, your systems and processes always need to be 5 years ahead of your growth curve. So if I'm gonna go and build a construction company, it's the one I'm most familiar with because I built a few of them. The first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go make sure my ERP, my system, that I track my purchase orders, that I track my estimating, that I track my financial procurement, my project management, all of that is synchronized and cohesive. Now, each specific industry and niche has its own version of a workflow or a system and process flow. A lot of times as entrepreneurs, this is the one area that we don't want to invest in that we absolutely must invest in. And the reason is because we don't see the immediate win. You see, a great system and process a lot of times will take anywhere from 1 to 5 years to really showcase its immediate value. Because you're going through the 5 drivers that I've already mentioned before in the video, and you're gonna be running that through your systems and processes. You wanna start using terms like if this, then that, which means if this happens, then that happens. If this customer is not satisfied, then this is gonna happen. If this customer is incredibly satisfied, then this is gonna happen. These types of theologies help you understand your business at a very, very, detailed level, even though you may not be strong suited for detail. Instead, position your mindset, especially for your visionaries, around the concept of actually visualizing and creating a vision around each one of the steps in the process. That will actually make creating the system and the process mapping actually a lot more fun. The reason I know that is because I am not gifted with details until I understand that I'm creating a vision and a strategy for each one of the little blocks on the little journey. Does that make sense? So you want to make sure you have a great financial system to make sure you've got great tools to manage financial inflow and outflow, balance sheets, cash flow, EBITDA, all right? For those of you guys who want to build big businesses, that is a very, very important thing to focus on. On top of that, we want to make sure that we have a sales system so we know how leads are coming in, how they're being handled, how they're going out, how they're being taken through the journey to creating a non-transaction client, but a lifetime value client. We want to have a production management suite of some kind that's managing all the inner workings of the tasks that team members are focused on. I know it sounds like a lot of work, and it can be at first. And as you know, here at the channel, one of the things that we talk about all the time is do the hard work first. If you do the hard work first, everything else becomes easier. You can't get it any simpler than that. And typically the hard work is the very thing that you don't want to do right now because you're intimidated by it. This is one of those things right now, I'm telling you, that you need to put focus and intention on. You literally go from planning to mentorship to mapping the process to the best of your ability, figuring out what your technology stack is going to be. Again, sales inflow, finance inflow, production management, like client delivery. If you will spend adequate time doing these types of steps, then what's going to happen is you are going to help yourself win the day because your business is going to be set up to operate on its own. And the only types of businesses that get bought in this marketplace are businesses that are either very much under stress and are getting fire sold, or they have so much value because the principles and the fundamentals and the systems and the process are so tight and so predictable that the entrepreneur, you, is no longer needed for the business. You see, if you're needed to run the business day in and day out, your business is actually only worth your life. Meaning that if something happens to you, your business goes away. And I don't know about you, but I like to create legacies that outlive me. So I want you to think through these different concepts as you're building this empire. Take the time. If you're not really sure on what to do, again, there's books, podcasts, resources, other thought leaders that are just really super strong in this specific niche. You know, a great book of a friend of mine, Lee Benson, has this book called The Most Important Number, which tells you what each one of those segments should be tracking to help you work backwards. These are types of things that I want to encourage you to do like yesterday. Again, I'm a big proponent. Once a year, you go away for a week and you just focus on your business. It's one of the few things that you can do is to actually focus on your business. And if you don't learn to focus on your business, you're always going to be in your business. And if you're in your business has no value and all you've done is create a job for yourself. You cannot create a 9-figure empire by you doing all the work and leaving everything else to chance. So you have to get serious and specific about this specific thing. All right, number 6, here we go. Major fundamental here. Make sure your customer's journey is exceptional. You see, anytime a client comes to do business with any of my organizations, I always want them to feel 3 very important things that a friend of mine, Chris Hogan, told me a long time ago. I want them to breathe rare air. Have you ever heard that term? Rare air? Rare air stands for an acronym: appreciation, inspiration, and recognition. If you, your team, and your clients, your customers, all feel appreciated, inspired, and recognized routinely, you're going to be able to build a raving fan retention model. A raving fan is someone who has got to tell their neighbors about you, about your business, about everything that you did excellent for them, right? They're not people who just had a good experience and won't share with their neighbors, friends, and family. Raving fans want to broadcast from the street tops, from the rooftops, if you will, your amazingness and what it's like to do business with you. Your business can actually become a place of character and exceptional value based on your level of making sure that customer journey is exceptional. So I want you to think about your business as you're kind of planning this new season. And I want you to consider, how can you make sure that every single time you touch point with a client, that they feel appreciated, inspired, and or recognized? In a best case scenario, it's all 3, okay? Here are some couple key things for that. First of all, identify with clarity the problem that you're there to solve and communicate to them, I'm here to help you solve this problem, okay? That's an easy one. All you gotta do is figure out what's in their way, how your product, good, or service, or your coaching or whatever, helps get that out of their way, and send that over to them in a meaningful way. Maybe it's a handwritten card. Maybe it's a video thank you. Maybe maybe you send them a big poster board. I don't know, but you got to do what's right for your business. But the concept is, you want to think every single time that person engages with you, what that experience is going to be, okay? And here's a very important one that most people way overlook. And that's what happens when a problem happens. Think about that. So you sell yourself as being the best company in the business on X, Y, and Z, and the customer has a terrible experience for one reason or another, okay? Here's the thing. Customers are not always right, but they're always important, which means every single time you have a touch point with them, you should come across with confidence, humility, grace, and mercy, and with a sincere desire to serve. I will tell you from personal experience, sometimes that sincere desire to serve will actually cost you money in the moment, but make you money in the long term, right? Let's say John Doe buys your product, and for some reason, the product gets to him and it's broken, it's shattered, it's damaged. Okay, he's flipping out because he'd been waiting on this product. He was excited about this product. It was going to solve a specific problem. And here comes a product. It's not there. It's not working. It's not getting the thing that he needs. Okay? John Doe reaches out to you or your customer care team and says, hey, I'm John Doe. I'm here to get this thing working. It doesn't work. How are you guys going to make this right? Okay? Your customer care department or you is going to say, bro, it's non-refundable. I'm sorry it's not working for you. What do you think John's going to do? He's going to go tell his neighbors that never buy from you ever. Let's be honest. Or you can say, hey, John, I really appreciate you sending us an email. We are always looking for ways to improve our organization, our product and goods and service. Can you tell me more about the problem you're experiencing so I can make sure that I serve you better? Do you see the tonality change and the perspective change? Which one do you think is going to cause John Doe, if you will, to then either get really upset or become more at peace? Which concept? Okay, so let's take that a step further. So now John says, well, here's what happened. Okay, John, you know what? We're always here to serve. We apologize for that. We're going to send you a prepaid packaging label to send us the product back. In the meantime, I'm going to go ahead and ship you a brand new one with extra fragile and extra bubble wrapped all over the box and in the box to make sure this gets there. And better yet, I'm going to next day air it. Think about that. You just gave John a world-class experience after a major problem has occurred. So what is John going to do? When he's sitting around having a barbecue with his friends, or when he's hanging out with his families or his in-laws or whatever, and they say, hey, John, I was thinking about getting this thing. John's be like, you know what? I know you want to get that camera or whatever from this other company. You need to go talk to these guys over here. Like, they totally took care of me. So it costs you extra money in the moment, but may have you pick up 4 or 5 more sales. Not to mention, John is going to buy from you again the next time he needs one of your products, goods, or services. Do you see the difference? Customer care is a real thing. If customers feel valued, they have zero problem adding cash value to your business. Customers are always important. Doesn't mean they're always right. Doesn't mean they're going to say the nice things. Doesn't mean hurt people don't hurt people. But how you choose to respond will choose to be how you choose to grow and scale your company. And I promise you, more sales because you did it the right way versus less sales because you didn't respond the right way. Quick math says, I'm going to always make sure this customer is important. All right, next point. All right, number 7, the final fundamental for this video. Build relationships before you build your profits. Everything about business, including who you do business with, like literally the client, who you do business with from a perspective of products, goods, and services you need to then serve your client, marketing initiatives, and even how you evaluate and build with your team all require the word relationship, okay? Relationships are never a one-way street. They're always a two-way street. Every single relationship has strengths, struggles, and blind spots. And when you identify that and you know that, then inevitably what happens is you're able to address those things in the moment, in the time in which it needs to occur to actually build relationships. I always like to say, build bridges, not dig ditches. It's far more important to build a bridge than it is to be right. Far more important. It doesn't matter what the circumstances are. And this actually plays in all relationships. Like who you're dating, like your family, your kids, like either you're building a bridge all the time or you're digging a ditch. Now, all because somebody else is digging a ditch on the other side does not mean you have to respond to them by considerably digging your own ditch. All you're doing is both digging bigger holes. So a core concept I want you to remember here is this. Questions, open hearts, statements, close them. And I'm not saying this as if I get this perfect all the time, because I don't. But I have realized that when I go and ask questions of people that are non-condemnatory, non-challenging, non-threatening, and I'm asking an honest question from a perspective and a viewpoint and an understanding, I get a lot more insight into the communication style that's happening in the moment, which helps me actually get further and faster building that relationship because the person feels seen, valued, heard, and appreciated, which is a very, very important skill set that you're gonna have to develop in business and relationships. And again, you're not gonna get it right all the time, okay? When you don't get it right, just own up to your own mistakes and like go at it again because that's what's important. Everybody from time to time is going to get frustrated. Everybody from time to time is not going to feel heard or valued. The tricky part is, or the trick is, I should say, is to keep going at it with consistency. The more you do things routinely, the more it'll become part of you, and pretty soon you'll become a very, very skilled communicator and relationship builder, right? Relationships lead to opportunities. In all of my businesses, I wish I could tell you that I took a product and I went straight to the marketplace and people just started buying it. I have not had that happen. Every single time thus far, instead what's happened is I build a relationship and that person introduces me to an opportunity. And then that opportunity takes shape, which then introduces me to another person or 2 or 3 or 10 that builds more opportunity, that builds 2, 3 more, 10. And guess what? All these people know other people and all these people know other people that want your product, good, or service, okay? Relationships are just as important as profits. In fact, if I was gonna draw you a bit of a Venn diagram or a circle with 3 pie shapes, I'd have profitability, relationships, and process, right? Think about that. Relationships, profitability, process. Relationships, profitability, process. Relationships, profitability, process. Those are 3 major things to focus on as you're building your own scalable organization. Now, if this content is super new for you and you're not exactly familiar with what to do next, I want to invite you to take advantage of something I created for you guys. It's totally free, no obligation. It doesn't matter, okay? You can do whatever you want to with it. I love you, I want to serve you, and therefore I wanted to give this content to you. And I've called it the 8-figure mindset makeover. The reason I started there is because most businesses, about 87% of businesses, never actually break the $1 million ceiling, let alone the $10 million ceiling and above, okay? What I've discovered is, on my own journey of building 8, 9-figure companies along the way, is this. The way in which your mindset operates, if you remember point number 1, controls in which the way your business is going to operate. So think about that. I want to invite you to take advantage of the 8-Figure Mindset Makeover. It's totally free. It's a video series I did focused specifically on what 8-figure earners do versus what 6-figure, 5-figure, 7-figure earners do. Because if I can help you change your mindset and how you see the world through the lens in which you see it, then guess what? You're going to build an 8-figure business a heck of a lot faster than it is now. And guess what? An 8-figure business is always on the way to 9 figures. All right, so that's going to do it for this video. If you have any questions or concepts or anything you want to know more, put it in the chat or put it in the comment section below. More importantly, make sure you've already subscribed because I'm going to be doing a lot more videos just like this to help you build your own 9-figure empire. And again, we'll see you in the next one. Take care. Peace.